waves crashed softly against the golden shore that evening, painting streaks of orange and violet across the endless horizon. The sun hung low, warm, dying, and beautiful. On that quiet stretch of beach, where laughter from distant families echoed faintly in the breeze, one man stood alone. His name was Ethan Cole, a single father who had seen too much loss, too much hardship, and too many sunsets spent wondering if life would ever stop testing him. He wasn't there for peace or beauty. He was there for his little boy, Liam, who was chasing seagulls with the kind of laughter that could melt even the hardest hearts. Ethan smiled faintly, watching his son's small footprints pattern the wet sand, knowing that little boy was his entire world. After his wife's passing 3 years ago, every single breath Ethan took was for Liam. But fate, in its quiet, mysterious way, was about to bring someone else into their lives that day, someone whose heart had been drowning long before the waves pulled her under. Before we dive deeper, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Universe, because stories like this remind us that love, fate, and kindness can change everything. It started as a cry, a faint, panicked voice carried by the wind. Ethan turned sharply, his instincts igniting. About 30 yards down the beach, a small crowd had begun to gather. A woman had been pulled from the water, her pale body motionless, her long dark hair tangled in seaweed and sand. No one knew what to do. No one moved fast enough. But Ethan didn't hesitate for a second. "Call 911, he shouted as he sprinted toward her, the sand burning beneath his feet. He dropped to his knees beside her, his hands trembling but focused. He checked for a pulse, nothing. Her lips were blue, her chest still. He started CPR 1, 2, 3. He breathed life into her lungs, again and again. The seconds dragged on like hours, the ocean whispering its cruel indifference beside them. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest, his voice breaking as he whispered, "Come on, please come back." And then, she coughed. Water gushed from her mouth, and she gasped for air, her body jerking violently. The crowd erupted in relief. Ethan fell back, trembling, as she turned her head weakly toward him, her eyes blinking open. They were the deepest green he had ever seen, like shattered emeralds under the sunlight. "You're safe," he said softly. "You're okay." She tried to speak, but her voice was a whisper. "You saved me." The paramedics arrived minutes later, rushing her to the hospital. Ethan stayed until they left, still staring at the tracks in the sand where she had lain moments ago. He didn't even know her name. That night, he tucked Liam into bed and sat by the window, unable to shake the image of those green eyes from his mind. Something about her, fragile yet fierce, had struck something deep inside him. The next day, fate intervened again. Ethan was at the beach cafe where he worked part-time, cleaning tables, when a woman walked in. Her hair was tied neatly this time, her posture graceful yet humble. It was her, the woman from the beach. "Hey," she said softly, smiling. "I think I owe you more than just a thank you." Ethan froze for a second, unsure how to react. "You're okay," he managed. "That's all that matters." She laughed lightly. "I'm more than okay, thanks to you. I'm Isabella Hartley." He didn't know it yet, but that name carried weight. Isabella was one of the wealthiest women in the country, a tech visionary, founder of a billion-dollar company, and heir to a legacy of privilege and power. But none of that mattered in that moment. To Ethan, she was just a woman with the kindest smile he'd ever seen. Over the following weeks, Isabella began visiting the beach more often. She told herself it was for healing, but the truth was, she wanted to see him. She wanted to see the man who had risked everything to save a stranger. Ethan would always greet her warmly, offering her a cup of coffee or helping her find a quiet spot to read. Liam, his son, grew fond of her too. "Miss Bella," he called her, showing her his sandcastles and shells. She laughed with him like she hadn't laughed in years. Isabella found herself feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time, peace. Away from boardrooms, flashing cameras, and hollow parties, she felt human again. And it was because of this humble man and his little boy who treated her not as a billionaire, but simply as a person. Yet, there was a secret Ethan didn't know. One evening, as they watched the sunset, Isabella's phone rang. Her assistant's voice was urgent. "Miss Hartley, the board is panicking. They've found out about your beach disappearances. The press is asking questions." Isabella's chest tightened. She'd kept her identity hidden from Ethan because she wanted him to like her for who she was, not for her money, her fame, or her empire. But she knew the truth would eventually surface. The next day it did. A headline flashed across Ethan's phone. Billionaire CEO Isabella Hartley rescued by unknown man, romance rumors swirl. He stared at it in disbelief. The woman he'd shared quiet sunsets was one of the most powerful people in the world. When Isabella arrived that afternoon, his voice was cold. "Why didn't you tell me who you were?" She hesitated, guilt in her eyes. "Because I didn't want you to see her. I wanted you to see me." He shook his head. "People like you don't live in my world, Isabella. I'm just a single dad trying to keep the lights on." Her voice cracked. "And I'm just a woman who almost drowned and found someone who made her feel alive again." For days they didn't speak. Isabella returned to her corporate tower, surrounded by glass and gold, yet all she could think of was a man who smelled of salt and sand. Ethan went back to his quiet routines, pretending the ache in his chest didn't exist. Then one morning, he found a note on the counter at the cafe. "You saved my life once. Let me help you save yours. Isabella." Attached was a card, an invitation to an event, a fundraiser for coastal safety awareness, sponsored by her company. Reluctantly, Ethan went. When he arrived, cameras flashed everywhere. Reporters swarmed, but Isabella ignored them all. She walked straight to him, in front of everyone, and took his hand. "I don't care about the headlines," she said, her voice trembling. "You taught me what real strength and kindness look like. You showed me love doesn't care about titles or money. It just cares about heart." The room fell silent. Ethan looked into her eyes, the same eyes he had seen open on that fateful beach, and something inside him finally softened. "You're impossible," he said with a small smile. She laughed through tears. "Maybe, but so are you." And right there, under the chandeliers and the flashing lights, the single dad and the billionaire woman embraced, not as two people from different worlds, but as two hearts that had found each other by pure chance. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Universe. Every story we share is a reminder that kindness, love, and courage can change the world. Months later, Ethan and Isabella returned to the same beach where it all began. Liam ran ahead laughing as the waves kissed his feet. Ethan slipped his hand into Isabella's, and she leaned her head on his shoulder. "You know," he said softly, "I used to think that life was just about surviving. And now," she asked, "now I know it's about saving, sometimes yourself, sometimes someone else." The sun dipped below the horizon, turning the sky into fire and gold. Somewhere between the tides of tragedy and hope, two broken souls had found their way back to love. And as the waves whispered their eternal song, it felt like the universe itself was smiling. Message: true love doesn't recognize wealth, status, or background. It finds its way to those who still believe in kindness. Sometimes, saving someone's life means saving your own heart, too.